An artist at her heart and soul, Manel Oliphant feels her love for stories and drawing walk hand in hand. I thought I understood what she meant by that, but after listening to her story and how she truly approaches art making, I see storytelling through a new light. You can find more of her work at maneloliphant.com, but for now, please join us as we talk about Manel's watercolor process, coloring your pieces without fear, using pencils with watercolor, how fundamental studies can be made fun, and how stories help us cope with hardships.
Want to be part of the show? Then send in your questions or topics you'd like to see covered to our email at hello@etralab.com. If you send us an audio recording, we might include it in the episode. Hi, I'm Anya, and this is Make More Art, a podcast by Etra, meant to inspire you to keep on creating. Now let's hear from our guest. Okay, Manel, I have a bazillion questions for you, but starting at the very beginning, I'd love to know how you first, when and why, and how you first fell in love with art.
Oh, okay. I think like most people that are artists, not all, but a lot, you just kind of love it from when you're a kid, right? So I just remember always loving to color, like just sitting on the floor coloring. And when I was a little kid, there was this show on TV. It was on the like public station, PBS, that was called Commander Mark. I don't remember what, Commander Mark Draws or something like that. And my mom said, like, I would just watch that and like try to draw like they drew in the show. He like taught things like, I don't know, like little lessons on like perspective and stuff like that. And I don't know, I guess I was really young when I used to watch that and loved it. And I remember sending my drawings into the show because they would like show the drawings on TV that were really good. But I think I was like maybe 7 or I don't know, 5, something like that. And the people that were sending in drawings were like 13. So they were like really good. They never showed my drawing on the show. But anyway,
They're
it's okay.
lost. They're lost.
I know.
When I was a kid, I don't remember how old I was, but me and my sister, my elder sister is 7 years older than I am. And we also had like this TV show for kids, and they had like also this little section where they would show the drawings. And she and I did this drawing together, and we mailed it. And they showed my drawing, but for some reason they said her name. I remember it so well because we were so confused, and she was just like, "But you're younger. My drawing should be the one be like in there." I'm like, "But it's your name, so you know, I get the drawing, you get the credits. We're all, we're both happy." It's just like, what the hell's going on? But yeah. Value like Medal of Honor of my childhood.
You know what?
So.
That happened to me. Like, there was like this magazine. I'm the older sister, so there was this magazine. Me and my sister both sent in drawings, and they put hers in. They got the name right. They put her drawing in the magazine, and I was like, "But my drawing was better. I don't get it. Like, why did they?" She was like, I don't know, 5, and I was 11 or something.
Yeah. So more or less the same difference. My sister was a little bit bummed because she helped me with my drawing, so she's like, I don't know, I made mine, I helped you with yours, and yours, like, this is so unfair. I'm like, well, life's unfair. Mom keeps saying life's unfair, so there you go, life lesson for you. I'm sorry, but continuing the thread.
Yeah, no worries. I guess we all have disappointments, right?
I wasn't happy. Yeah, younger.
Yeah. Awesome.
But then you were an artsy kid, and when did you...
So I think it was when I was about 11, my mom paid for me to take private lessons. There was just like a lady who like taught kind of like piano lessons, and it wasn't very much money, I don't think. But so I started taking lessons from her every week. And I think it was when I was about 15 or 16 was when my mom was like, you have to pay for your own lessons. Like, I just can't do it anymore or whatever. And you're old enough to buy your own. So after that, I figured out how to pay for my art lessons myself. And I took lessons from her for like 7 years until I went to college. Yeah.
How did you find curiosity? What did you do to get the money to pay for those lessons?
Oh man, I think lots of times it was summer jobs. Sometimes I actually taught my own art lessons. So like I would teach the neighborhood kids.
What?
Yeah, and they would like come. My mom let me use their kitchen. I would teach them, and then I would use that money to pay for my lessons.
This is
So,
brilliant.
yeah,
This is
everyone take
brilliant.
note.
Wow. Wow. You're my new hero. This is
Oh,
like,
thanks.
this is next level. Wow. Okay. You were very invested then. And then you went to
Oh, yeah.
college
Yes.
to
So I went to BYU, Idaho, and majored in art there. So
okay.
yeah, that's
Art in
kind
the
of
heart forever.
yes, forever.
So, looking at your social media profiles and your website, you clearly have a lot of passion for storytelling, for stories, and how they are. I mean, you did not use that word. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it felt to me like you were saying how essential they are to our development. So, what to you, first of all, what do you think is the connection between stories and being an artist?
Okay. I think there's a lot of things that you can do as an artist, right? So, and I feel like some artists who are brilliant, like they're not telling stories with their art. I mean, they're making a connection with someone. Maybe it's like an emotional connection or something like that.
Mhm.
But I think for me, they always went hand in hand because I remember, back to when I was a little kid drawing, watching that TV show, all of those things. There was a lot related to like the books I was reading
Mhm.
and like I don't know, just the things I watched on TV and the books that I read is sort of what inspired what I wanted to draw.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, I think they just went together. Like I always loved to draw and I always loved to read. So that's, I think that just became like, you know, those two passions put together is what turned me into me, I
So,
guess.
for you, art always was a synonym of storytelling.
I think so. Yeah. Like I even
Interesting.
remember like when I took those art lessons, my art teacher was really good at she had like a good drawing foundation and a lot of she was a fine artist, so she did a lot of like still life painting and portrait painting. And I learned a lot from her about that. But then I would like come in with these like pictures that were like dragons, knights fighting dragons, and like, I don't know, just random, fairies, like things that I still like to draw now. I liked
Mm-hmm.
to draw then. So, I think she kind of sometimes didn't know what to do with me because like her, like she's always encouraging, but I don't think like she related to art in that way.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah. So, but yeah, I just know like I'm so grateful for that foundation that she gave me. And then I always had these other things going on where it was just like, I just really want to tell these stories. And there were other students that she taught that were like me, that like we read some of the same like dragon books and we would talk about the dragon books and then we would draw dragons and I don't know, stuff like that. So,
Wow. Yeah, I love that because to me it's kind of the same. I see art as a way of communication and story as something very essential to our development as human beings. So that's what I would also like you to expand a little bit on. So, why are stories so important?
okay. I think there's a lot of reasons. Um, so we'll just do some of my favorite ones, the ones that I kind of ponder, I guess. So one of the things I love about stories is the way that it helps you connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, my youngest sister is 19 years younger than me. So you can imagine that
Wow.
like yeah. So there's 8 kids in my family, right? So she's the youngest and I'm the oldest. And so I feel like for my family and just like that span of ages, like stories is kind of one of the things that helps us connect. So
Mm-hmm.
like you can all go see the same movie and even though you have like different experiences individually, like you sort of like share that experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Uh huh.
then like gives you something to relate to. So obviously this can happen to anyone. Like that's why there's like fan groups of like everyone that loves Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, like
Mm-hmm.
online there. We have the same experience. We all love it. And we can talk to each other about it, even though like our backgrounds and everything are so different. So, yeah, so back to my little sister, I feel like that's one of the things that I can relate to her with. Like we have this huge like span of years that's different, but then like we can both watch like Tangled and be
Hmm.
like, I love Tangled, like together. So I feel like that's one of my favorite things about stories is that it helps us connect
Hmm.
with each other. So there's one. One of my other favorite things is just how stories help you kind of process, right?
Mm.
Like stuff that
Interesting.
happens in your life. So I think looking back on my like love for reading, there's a lot of things where you sort of watch a character do something
Hmm.
or read a character doing something. For me, it's always a picture in my brain. So I'm watching this character do something. And of course, like there's times where you're just like, you're hoping that they're going to make the right choice, right? And if it's a good story, you know what the right choice is, and the character is probably struggling with it.
Yeah.
So then you can like watch them do that. And then when something comes up in your life that might not even be the same, you sort of already like lived through that. And
Wow.
so then you can kind of make a better choice, hopefully, right? For
I've
your
never
life.
thought about it like that. That's very unique, and I'm realizing I've been doing that without even
Yeah,
knowing. Wow.
right. Hey, that's nice. These are just thoughts I have in my brain. Who knows? Like, you never know, right? If they're
Both
like
make sense to me. Do you have any like
useful.
real life example where that happened to you?
Okay. So it's kind of personal, so it'll be vague. But like I was reading a story. It was like I was an adult, but it was like a middle grade book about a girl that got a pet dragon. I can't
Mhm.
even remember what it was called. I can remember what the picture on the cover looks like. But anyway, for her to be able to like control the dragon, she sort of had to like give in and like do like I don't know, give into the dragon and like become one with it. It sounds
Mhm.
so weird, like out of the
No, I
context
get
of
it.
the story, right? So I was like reading it, and there was like a choice that I was struggling with. I guess this is where I'll be vague, where I like kind of didn't want to do something,
Mhm.
but like I read through about her commitment, and I was just like, okay, like you just need to commit. This one is like really specific, right? Like, so I like read the book and I was like, okay, you have to commit to this choice. So then I did, and obviously everything turned out great. But
Yeah.
like, I feel like usually it's not quite so straightforward as that,
Yeah,
but
that's like for the sake of giving an example, it needs to be straightforward so it clicks and makes sense. But I
right.
can see, and it's hard to give a convoluted example because then you would need a lot of background. Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, and it does make sense when dealing with something new in your life and you don't know what choice to make because, well, there are no safe points or go back a few
Mhm.
pages with life. You just have to make a decision and live with it. It's
Right.
good to have some kind of comparison, even, and I love how even if it's from a fantastical world, the principle,
Hmm.
the empathy, the feelings are the same, so you can, yeah, it's like exactly what you said. It helps you process. That's like I'm going over all the stories that I loved and the characters that I love, and just like,
Hmm.
yeah, this has really helped me. I once listened to this TED talk that says like I don't remember. It was a young lady who gave this TED talk. She was super charismatic, but she was talking about stories and characters, and she was saying, uh, all of us have one superhero or villain, like one character in the story that we hate. We
Hmm.
really don't like that character at all. And then we have someone who we love. And if we look closely at that, we realize that the one that we hate represents the thing in us that we hate the most, that we don't like about us, and the one that we love represents our biggest, like the best of us that we really love.
Hmm.
So they both
Yeah.
are a representation of you, just different sides. And I'm like, but I hate the Hulk. Oh my god, when I'm mad, I'm like awful. This is so true. I need to work on that. So that really clicked for me. So
That's cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever thought of anything like that, but
yeah,
that's
stories.
yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, stories are a maze. Other things that you love
Yeah.
about that you love about stories.
So it was the idea, like we were just talking about fantasy stories. Obviously, I kind of love fantasy. That's all we've talked about. I do read other stories sometimes, but I think I love fantasy for the fact that you can like say really important things,
Mhm.
like maybe about like issues that are happening now that are like supercharged, but like you sort of can. disguise a life lesson in a fantasy book, that may so then maybe like it puts space between like the reader or the watcher in the story, and they can
Mm-hmm.
like think about that issue in a different way
Mm-hmm.
without all the like emotions that come from like being in the present moment and worrying that like you're going to die or your country's going to fall apart or whatever it is.
It
You know
makes
what
a
I
lot of
mean?
sense. Yeah, yeah. It
Anyway,
helps to rationalize very emotional subjects. It's
yeah.
therapy, basically. Putting it
Yeah.
simply, it's kind of a form of therapy. Wow, that's really cool. So, I mean, and just a side note, and I was just as you were saying that the same thing kind of happens to music when the song is also like a story. Not always. Sometimes it's just like a couple of
Hmm.
sentences repeated all the time. But when the song is a story and people relate to that song, I'm just thinking of what you just said. It's a storytelling thing, and it helps process a lot of emotions too. So I love how storytelling is so powerful. And then, is it correct in saying that art making is a way to give form to a story? Because you can, just like music, I mean, you can turn a story into a
Hmm.
song, and that's a way to make it alive. But then art is the other way, another way to just make it a living thing.
That makes sense to me. I guess like I'm sort of thinking maybe it's maybe just another way to communicate. Like music is a way to communicate certain emotions and stories, and art is that same thing. It can communicate emotions and stories. I feel like there's more on that list: emotions, stories, other things
Mm-hmm.
that you need to communicate. So yeah, I think so. Maybe that's and like if you look at all the art, that's pretty much what it is. Like, dancing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of communicating, and I don't know. I think that's why it's so essential, right? Like it's hard to put like a monetary value on, but like everybody sort of needs it in some
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
agree with you, especially because it's one of the human being's most essential survival thing is connection and communication. And that's what stories and art are.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, now, after this very beautiful philosophical rant, let's dive in and talk a little bit about your beautiful work, which is also very poetic in its own way. So you're mainly a watercolor artist, is that accurate?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So what do you love
I
about
think,
watercolor? Go ahead.
oh, okay, watercolor. I love, I think one of the reasons like I gravitated towards it is because it's easy to clean up.
Okay, that is
So like
valid.
that's just a practical, like I mean I don't have like a space where I can paint like with oils or acrylics. I mean I think that's why people like digital too, right? Obviously
Mhm.
digital is even easier to clean up
Mhm.
than watercolor. But like, when I first graduated from college and I was like living back in a bedroom in my parents' basement, like
Wow.
there wasn't space to like get out oil paint and stuff, and I still wanted to practice. So I think that's one of the things that I like about watercolor. But it's there's more than that. I love that, like those moments. It's sort of a struggle. I think painting is always kind of a struggle. But then you have like those moments where it like works perfectly. You know what
Mhm.
I'm talking about?
Mhm.
And so when watercolor sort of works perfectly, it like does the thing where it like paints itself, right? Like you just like put the paint down and it can like run or not. And like in that moment you're like, "Whoa, I did it right." And it like painted itself and it looks so beautiful and fresh and stuff like so. I think that satisfying, I think that happens with all the mediums, right? They all have their own like thing that like that's why you love it, is like I don't know, getting in that zone, that artsy zone. And
Mhm. I
anyway.
love it. I love it. I was watching some of your reels on Instagram of yourself painting, and one of them you were talking about how you sketch in pencil, and you let the pencil, see through the watercolor.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you so because a lot of artists like to try like we use the pencil and we try to hide it, but you have a completely different approach. So why and how and
Okay. So I think one of the reasons I made that reel was just because I got that question a lot. Like people were
mm-hmm.
like, well, what do you do with the pencil? And my answer is I don't do anything with it. It's just there. So one of the reasons I like watercolor is the like transparent part of
Mm-hmm.
it. Obviously, it's a different thought process if you're painting, you know, oil or watercolor or digital watercolor, dark to light or light to dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after doing watercolor so much, it's easier for me to think that way. This is going to get back around to the pencil, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, but so I think what it is a lot of people, especially if you've been painting digital, acrylic, or oil paint, you're um, thinking about it the opposite way. You're covering up everything,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
It does.
Watercolor is not like that. So it's sort of meant to build on itself. So I guess in that sense, the pencil drawing is like your foundation drawing,
Yeah.
right? Like your foundation of the painting. So when I'm drawing the pencil, and I think this just comes with practice, is you start to know like certain things are going to show through. So there, after practicing a while, you kind of learn like how your pencil drawing should look for a watercolor painting, if that makes sense.
It does make
So,
sense.
yeah, because it's kind of different than like just sketching in your sketchbook or something. I don't do a lot of shading with my watercolor pencil drawings, like
Mm-hmm.
pretty much none. Every once in a while, I do on purpose to maybe experiment or something, but overall, they're just line drawings, pretty cleaned up and simple. So,
So before you put watercolor on paper, you clean up the pencil so it looks a certain way, or do you embrace the messiness of the pencil?
I usually clean it up. So actually, my process is I'll sketch my sketch on regular paper
Mm-hmm.
and then scan it in and then clean it up on the computer and
Oh.
then print it out on watercolor paper. And
Ah.
then usually I'll do the printout lighter because even though like I try to get my sketch as good as possible sketching it, there's always stuff I want to change when I'm painting. So I'll do the sketch kind of light, print it on the paper, and then redraw again on top of itself with pencil.
Ah, that's smart.
Yeah. So it's nice because if I mess up the painting, I can just print out another sketch and try again. Like you don't have to like be
Go
like,
over
oh, I worked so hard
everything
on this
again.
drawing and now it's ruined.
And also, it
So,
takes away the pressure of, okay, I have this one drawing. If the colors don't go right,
mhm.
oh my god, and you ruin it. Because you're so
Yes,
stressed out. You're just
yeah,
like, damn.
all that pressure is gone. So yeah, so that's what I usually do. So there's kind of a process. So like the drawing process is still messy, and then I'll kind of clean it up before I do the painting.
Okay, gorgeous. I love it. You're making me want to just stop everything that I'm doing and go back to the drawing table. Thank
Yeah,
you.
hopefully everyone listening feels
Oh,
that way
I'm
too.
sure. I'm sure they will. Like I'm super pumped already. When you paint with watercolor, up until now, what has been the hardest thing to overcome while learning the medium?
Okay. Um, that's hard because it's all kind of hard, right? Like there's times where I'm sitting, every artist does this, where you have those moments where you're like staring at a painting and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, why did I even decide to do this? Like, and
Yes.
it's
Thank you
hard
for
to
saying
say,
it.
yeah, because like that's not exactly what the thought process is, right? Like in your mind, it's not like you actually don't know what you're doing because in your mind, you're like, I've done this hundreds of times. But there's just a moment where it's, yeah, you're just sitting there wondering what to do next. I think so. I guess the hard part is like working through that. It's sort of like a process of like sitting, and I have horrible habits, and so I usually am watching TV while I'm drawing or listening to a book, and then I'll like get to one of those points, and then I'll be like, I don't know what to do here, so I guess I'll play Candy Crush for a while till I run out of lives and see what happens. But like it really is just kind of a process of like, I don't know, sitting and waiting, and I probably make it harder by distracting myself. So
Well,
I think that might be the hardest.
true, true. There was one time, there was at least one day that I couldn't draw anything for the sake of I want to draw something today because I haven't drawn in a while. So I'm like, okay, I know. I'm just going to look at Pretty Ladies reference just so I have a
Hmm.
spark of an idea of what I want to do. And then I started going into the rabbit hole of like looking into references and not doing anything.
Hmm.
So it took me like 1 hour until I actually grabbed the pencil and did something. But hey, all of this to say that sometimes distractions are necessary unless you spend 1 hour looking at references, which is I do not advise that to anyone.
Sometimes though that is part of the process though, right? Because I don't know, did you find later that like the pictures you had looked at helped?
No, I was really distracted. If I know what
Oh,
you
okay.
mean, sometimes I spend like hours looking at reference when I'm actually working on a project and I need to know how
Mm,
something, works and how I would move it in space, then I spend hours looking at reference and it kind of is frustrating because I feel like, dang, wasting, quote unquote,
hmm.
so much time that I'm not drawing when actually you're just preparing your mind and your body to do the right thing. It's like that super famous story of the axe and the trees, like the story that a lot of people know, which is if I give you an axe and tell you that you have 1 hour to chop down as many trees as you can, if you're smart, you're going to spend almost an entire hour just sharpening the axe. Because if it's sharp, then you can cut down a lot of trees faster. But if it's dull, you can waste all your energy and all your time, and nothing is going to come out of it.
Mm,
So it's
yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like a balancing process, really, right? Because you could spend the whole hour sharpening the axe and then like the hour's up and you didn't do anything.
exactly. So
So, yeah.
there
Yeah.
you go. Oh, the balance is so bad. Well, then there are many ways to go about around it. So it's like you give yourself the morning to look over at references and build
Mm,
a board on Pinterest or something, and then you have the afternoon to actually do the art and no more looking at references. Like
yeah. No more
no
like
internet. You have
gathering. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, Candy
So true.
Crush. Maybe not a good
Yeah.
idea. I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes it is. Sometimes I'll do productive stuff. Like, well, the other day someone asked me, I think they were asking me if I used a blow dryer on my watercolor.
Oh
And the answer is
yeah.
yeah, sometimes I do. But sometimes like instead of blow drying, I'll just like let my paint dry
Grab a
and I'll
coffee.
walk away and do something else, right?
Yeah.
So go on a walk or practice the piano or I don't know,
Just
eat
get out of the
lunch,
zone.
something like that. And then when you come back, your mind is fresh, the painting is dry, you're ready to go on
So
the
true. I
next.
remember this one time I was having a huge hard time trying to get the color of the sky scene right. And I was
Mhm.
going insane, and my husband was like, hey, enough, just come with me, let's go out for a walk. And I'm like, okay. And the sun was setting, and the color in the sky was beautiful. And I'm like, oh, this is what I was missing, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And well, yeah, sometimes. So true. You just need to get out of
Yeah.
the zone and get a fresh loaf of air. Talking about okay, we're ranting a lot about processes, which is fun, and I could rant for hours if if you only got to know me a little bit more. I would you cannot open rant topics with me. I will not shut up. Your live demo. You are doing a live demo with us on February 27th, and what
Mhm.
will you be doing on that day?
So we're just gonna paint a mermaid. Is what we're gonna do.
Oh,
So with watercolor. So yeah, you'll get a sketch if you want, or you can draw your own, and then I'll just kind of go through. So it will be a lot. I mean, a lot about just watercolor techniques and how I use them. I guess more in depth than like the Instagram reels or anything like that. Or even like I have short videos on my Patreon too that are longer than the Instagram reels, and this will be
mm-hmm.
even longer than that. So
And we will
yeah.
link to your Patreon and your website on the post associated with this episode. So just go to our post at etralab.com/Manel, and you'll find all the links there so you can check it out and support Manel on her Patreon. And I'm glad that you brought the mermaid up because we do have a question from our audience for you from Sarah Beth Art Adventure. She asked what inspired your mermaid book.
Okay. That's pretty easy. It was just Mermaid. So it was a combo, I guess, between Mermaid and just my love for like Arthur Spiderwick's Field Guide and like Iris's beautiful fairy book and those, kind of field guide-y fantasy books. And yeah, so it was Mermaid. I love storytelling. So the first one I did was in 2018 and it was just kind of like a fake journal. Like when I first posted, people like I was like, me and my husband were on a trip to see mermaids around the world, and some of my friends were like, I like literally thought that you were on a trip. Like around the world because I think I even like location tagged in Instagram like the
Oh, that's
places where I was
beautiful.
going, even though I was just sitting at my house in Utah like drawing. Like anyway, so yeah,
Wait,
so some
the
people were like,
places that you tagged, this is beautiful. I love that idea. The places
uh,
that you tag, were they somehow related to the references that you picked for the.
yeah, so the story was just us on a boat. So like we went down to Antarctica and like saw some mermaids down there. So I location tagged it and then moved up, South America. Since there
Mhm.
were some places there, and then over to Europe. I don't know. It was just sort of random. It was kind of like whatever mermaid I felt like drawing that day, and then I
Mhm.
would be like, where would this mermaid live? Or like, how would I get there from like the last place I supposedly was?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
was like a fake trip around the world that I just did throughout the month. And that was really fun.
So
Um,
cool.
but then the next year I was kind of like, I really want to try if like I had a story, like a full-fledged story. Cause that was just like pieces, right? Like
Yeah.
a little thing of like, I don't know. I don't even know if you would call it a full story. You would, but it wasn't at the same time. Like it didn't. Anyway, but yeah, so the next year I wrote like a short story, it's like 5,000 words, which turned out to be way too long, but and then like made my art journal according to this character. So it was as if the
Mhm.
character was writing it. And so I just kind of built from there.
I love it. And I mean, fake trip around the world. You actually went around the world in your imagination. You cannot say it's fake.
Yes.
You did go on a journey. I love that. I really. Aw. You are a storyteller.
Oh, thanks.
You are a storyteller. Okay, Manel, is there anything you'd like to mention, leave our audience before we wrap up this lovely discussion?
Sure. I think that sometimes when I listen to podcasts of people talking, like I'll come away, maybe not everyone does this, but I'll come away being like, oh my gosh, I have to be like that person. They're so cool. Which that'd be awesome if you all thought I was cool. But
You are
like,
cool.
I'll like kind of think like that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is the best is to focus on like having fun with your art. Like forget about like style. I don't know, maybe I guess having fun first and then maybe giving it a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes like the purpose can just be for you. Like it doesn't have to be to like change the world because like if you're creating something and it's making you happier, then your life is better and that changes the world, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a mom and you're happier, your kids are going to be happier, your husband is going to be happier, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on having fun with your art. Like do the things that sound the most fun for you. Like paint fairies if you like love to paint fairies, but if you like kind of think they're dumb, like that's totally legit. Like
Yeah.
you can go paint portraits, like just whatever is fun. And like if you just want to do like lettering, like that's really if you go on Instagram, that's what people are doing. The ones that like have big followings, they're just like, I love doing this thing. And
That's the key word. They love doing it. That's the key word that you
yeah,
just said. They love it.
so they're happy. So yeah, just focus on that. Like forget about like if you want to be a professional artist, forget about like a style. Just focus on having fun. And, I think for me, part of focusing on having fun is like trying to get better as an artist. So I'm like studying hands and stuff, but it's usually related to a picture.
Okay.
Like I have less fun if I'm like, I'm just going to study hands, which I do sometimes do that. But if I'm like, I'm going to draw this picture and I want the hands to be awesome, and then I start studying hands so that I can like
With
make
the purpose.
yeah, it's way more fun. So,
Yeah.
like do that and you're going to get better and it's going to be more fun. And yeah.
What are your thoughts on storytelling? Are they essential? Do they influence your art in any way, or do you forget about it when you create? Please tell us your thoughts in the comment section of the post associated with this interview at etchrlab.com/Manel. That's etchrlab.com/MANELLE. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, simply let us know in the comment section below.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please help us keep the show alive. You can subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts at etchrlab.com/go/Apple. Or if you're more of a YouTube viewer, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our most recent videos. Sharing is caring and every little bit helps. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Until then, let's make more art.